Hello, everybody. I'm Parsha Becky, and welcome back to another week of Parsha. As I'm sure you recall, we are currently in the middle of reading the third book of Chumash, the book of Vayikra. Vayikra means he called. And for the whole book of Vayikra, I'm sorry. Hello? Hello, who is it? It's Hashem calling. Hashem, who are you calling for? Hashem is calling for Moshe. Hashem, I'm going to pass the phone to Moshe. I've got to get back to Parsha. Okay, I know. Hashem isn't really calling on my cell phone. But for the whole book of Vayikra, Hashem is calling Moshe to give information relating to the Mishkan that we just finished building at the end of the book of Shemot. This week's Parsha is called Shmini, which means eighth. And it's called that because at the end of last week's Parsha, the Kohanim spent 7 days performing a ritual to become inaugurated into their job as Kohanim. And this week's Parsha begins the very next day, on the 8th day after that 7-day process. And on that 8th day, the Kohanim bring some special korbanot, just like Hashem asks, to the Mishkan with cows, and sheep, and goats. But then Aaron's 2 oldest sons, Nadav and Avihu, go off script and start bringing things that Hashem didn't ask for, making up their own stuff to do in the Mishkan, not in the ways that Hashem has said is acceptable and safe and permitted. And fire comes out of the Mishkan and to punish them, and Nadav and Avihu pass away. They die. Aaron is very upset, naturally, these are his children. And Moshe tries to comfort Aaron. Moshe says, Hashem says they're close with Hashem and they're holy. And Aaron doesn't say anything. And Hashem says, hey, I have some more rules for the Kohanim, for Aaron and his remaining children and the future Kohanim. They are not allowed to drink any alcohol before doing their work in the Mishkan, because we know alcohol can affect people's judgment, can make people act silly. And there's a time and a place for silliness, even for alcohol. The Mishkan isn't it. That's a place where we need to be 100% making good choices and behaving respectfully and responsibly. Later on, Moshe's reviewing the korbanot of the day, and Moshe says, hey, Aaron, why didn't you eat the meat from the korban that you were supposed to eat? That was your job. Why didn't you do your job properly, Aaron? You burned the meat instead of eating it. And Aaron says, excuse me, Moshe. I am still upset about the loss of my 2 sons. I am still grieving. I did not think it would be appropriate for me to eat the meat of the korban when I would be thinking about my sons and how upset I am, instead of thinking about Hashem and the holiness of that sacrifice. So I'm sorry, but that's I used my best judgment in doing that. And Moshe says, you were right, Aaron. I'm sorry for yelling at you. You made the right choice by making sure that you weren't eating the korban when your mind was distracted, and taking that time to calm down and instead burning the meat so it wouldn't go to waste. That was actually the right choice. You were right. I'm sorry, Aaron. This is all a very depressing topic. So the Parsha is going to change topic to something that will make us much happier. What do we all love? Food. We love food. So the Parsha is now going to give us the rules for which animals are kosher to eat, organized by how they move, not by scientific classifications or what they are, but rather how they move. So the first group is animals that walk around on the land. They are kosher if they follow the following rules, all of the following rules. They have to have hooves, not paws or hands, but hooves, like horses' hooves, but not like horses' hooves, because they have to be split hooves. Instead of one piece like a horse's hoof, split in 2, like a cow's hoof. And it has to be an animal that chews its cud, which means, like, for example, cows have 8 stomachs. They chew their food. It goes down into one part of the stomach. The stomach then deposits the food back in their mouth, not like vomiting, but like it's part of their normal digestion process. They chew this partially digested food again, and it goes down in a different part of the stomach for their digestion to continue. So an animal has to chew its cud and have split hooves in order for it to be kosher if it walks around on land. For animals that swim in the water, the rules are they have to have fins that help them swim, and their body has to be covered in scales for them to be a kosher animal in the water, fins and scales. For animals that flap their wings to move around flying in the air, that have big wings to flap, you notice I'm not saying birds, because we've got animals that flap their wings to fly and are not birds. For example, bats. We have a list of non-kosher flying animals. Instead of a rule, we've just got a list, and the Torah says any animal that's not on this list is kosher to eat. But any flying animal that's on the list of non-kosher flying animals, we are not allowed to eat. The non-kosher flying animals list includes bats as well as a whole bunch of birds, and any flying animals that flap their wings to move around that's not on the list is kosher to eat. And finally, our last category are creepy crawlies. That they skitter around. They've got a bunch of legs, sometimes wings also, sometimes not. Bugs, for creepy crawlies, the rule is they've got a rule and a list, so we don't have any confusion. The rule is they have to have 4 legs, not 6, not 8, 4 legs, and they have to be jointed legs, with knees, with joints in the middle of the leg that bend. And they have to move by jumping around, not just like crawling or skittering and walking, but by jumping. And the Torah says there are exactly 4 creatures, 4 creepy crawlies that follow these rules, and they are crickets, locusts, bald locusts, and grasshoppers. Those are the only kosher creepy crawlies. All other creepy crawlies we do not eat. The Parsha adds that if somebody touches a dead non-kosher land animal, they cannot go into the Mishkan until they have washed off. Also, if they touch even a dead kosher animal, if it was not slaughtered properly, but rather is roadkill or was killed by another animal, you just find it lying there dead. Once you touch it, you're not allowed to go into the Mishkan until you wash off. And if somebody touches a non-kosher bug, even if it's alive, you are not allowed to go into the Mishkan until you get washed off. That is the end of Parshat Shmini. But we also have, this Shabbat is a special Shabbat called Shabbat Parah. It is one of 4 special Shabbatot leading up to Pesach. Shabbat Parah is read in the Shabbat before Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which is this Shabbat. Parah means cow. And it's called that because for Shabbat Parah, after we read the Parsha, we read a special passage from the book of Bamidbar about the Parah Adumah, the red cow, also known as red heifer, about a cow whose fur is entirely red and is used in a special ritual for a special korban, where we take the ashes of the red cow, we add into the fire cedar wood, a branch of a particular plant, and some red string, and we take these combined ashes, which are used to actually purify people, to make them able to come to the Mishkan. And of course, this is read in the weeks leading up to Pesach, because on Pesach, back when we had a Beit HaMikdash or a Mishkan, everyone would need to bring a Korban Pesach. So it's important to make sure that we're able to purify the people in large quantities to ensure that everyone is able to do their Korban Pesach on time. That is the end of this week's Parsha. Shabbat Shalom.